last year, I was in the process of preparing for my Philmont check. For those of you who don't know, Philmont is a high adventure camp in New Mexico, and the place that my troop planned backpacking this summer. It requires sturdy, durable gear, so I knew that my $40 Amazon hiking bag from 2019 wasn't going to cut it. So I headed down to what is arguably heaven on earth, REI, and soon enough found a bag that was practically perfect. Until I looked at the price, $352.98. Are we serious? I can't lie. A part of me died inside looking at that price. But considering that this would be a one-time investment that would last me well worth the years, I decided that it had to be worth a significant hole in my bank account. It was then that one of the well-meaning cashiers asked me if I wanted to join the rewards program, which would add on another $200 or so to the total fee. Several responses flew to my head in that moment. I can't right now, I'll have to pass for today, maybe next time. But for some reason, none of these were responses that I could say out loud. I knew that I didn't want to join the rewards program, knew that it wasn't feasible for me. And yet, the only response I could come up with was a reluctantly muttered, sure. I'm sure the cashier's day was made, but I left the store that day with two things: a quiet guilt that clung to me for an entire week, and a now $400 hole in my pocket. This feels like a daily reality, not just for myself, but for the many people pleasers in this room. We willingly prioritize the feelings and experiences of things that we frankly don't have time for, and we pay for it. We pay for it with our time, our money, our efforts, pay for it with our life itself. It's a self-inflicted torture that we're too terrified to confront, and the worst part of it all is, we have absolutely nobody to blame for this, except for ourselves. But we aren't afraid of this word for no good reason. Right now, we live in a time where a simple no can mean becoming a social pariah. Pass on the wrong event, skip the wrong gathering, and all of a sudden, you're alienated from what was thought guaranteed. Put simply, saying no threatens our sense of belonging and security, two things that are pretty much necessary for the world that we live in today, according to child psychologist Deborah Byrne. So it's easier for us to stack up the small things if it means that we get to hold on to what gives us value and purpose. But when we choose to participate in activities and events that are antithetical to our beliefs and values, all to avoid some fleeting picture of isolation, we end up putting the blame on other people for feelings that they didn't even know they were causing. And if we take a little step backward, actually, more like 2.5 million years worth of steps backward, what we'll find is that to some surprise, humans are actually hardwired to avoid conflict. In times when being part of the in-group, think of them as safe cliques, can mean the difference between life and death. It was natural for our ancestors to want to prioritize belonging and cohesion above everything else. But if it wasn't obvious enough already, we don't exactly live in caves anymore. Our progress as a society depends on exchanging, and more frequently, debating ideas and trains of thought. And this, obviously, requires us to say no to one another every so once in a while. The only problem is, our bodies haven't exactly caught up to where we are today. And so, instead of perceiving no for what it is, assertiveness, we somehow conflate it with something entirely different: aggression. Our limbic system responds in kind, flooding our body with hormones that activate our fight or flight responses, when all we're really doing is rejecting an idea or thought that doesn't work for us at the time. Now, this obviously is more than a little bit uncomfortable, and so we decided that we'd rather try and avoid this entirely by shelving our beliefs away, because this is all really too much to deal with right now, and I actually have a mountain of other things I could be working on. So how about I just take all my conflicting opinions on the back burner, put them to the side, and move on with my day? The only problem is, this toxic thought process just creates even deeper of a mess for us to dig ourselves out of. For the time being, shelving those little disagreements makes us feel amazing about ourselves. We feel superior to others for having committed to the greater good and shoving our discontent towards the back of our minds. And we justify it, telling ourselves, I compromised. I exercised restraint. I was agreeable throughout our entire day. And then, once we come home to our loved ones who ask us well-meaning questions about our day, or if a certain event fits into the schedule, we begin to project all of our frustration and irritation, and times when we couldn't say no onto this one time that we finally can, and we explode. We're not being noble or gaining the moral high ground by doing this. What we're actually doing is sacrificing the relationships, the people, the experiences that matter for the ones that don't, in more ways than just one. Because when we choose to move away from our unique identity and conform by saying yes, even if it's not the response that we choose otherwise, not only does that pent-up frustration go, but we begin to lose sight of who we uniquely are. We lose sight of our interests, our personalities, and our beliefs until eventually we stop knowing what it is that we truly want anymore, as Harley Therapy best puts it. What we have to start understanding is that saying yes isn't automatically the key to some bigger, brighter, better, bolder future. Our time and opportunities are, in fact, transactional. For us to be able to say yes to one opportunity means that we have to say no to another, no matter how far down the line the opportunity may seem. This also means that if we trade in our yeses too early on for things that don't matter to us, like picking up the extra part of that group project or doing someone else's yesay, we don't have enough time or space to say yes to the things that really do matter to us. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't be helpful and lend a helping hand whenever we can, but it's about knowing when we personally can handle the extra workload. In other words, in order to be able to say yes more to what we care about, we have to start saying yes less to what we don't. Now, we don't have to go by these rejections just respectfully. The key is to strike a balance between being assertive and delivering our no's in a kind manner. If we can let the person on the other end of the conversation know that it's not because of me, it's not because of you, and it's not because of us, as our reasons for giving a no, our responses suddenly become much more well received and heard. Other times, a good response requires a little more preparation and conflict. And by postponing our response with a simple, I'll get back to you on that, it gives us time to decide whether or not saying yes to a certain request or opportunity is truly the best possible decision in that particular moment. Now, this doesn't mean ghosting the individual having a conversation with you, but it does mean reserving a little bit more time for yourself to truly make the best course of action for everybody involved, even if that means taking a small step back from something you no longer have the capacity to handle. Truth be told, though this whole process sounds difficult in theory, it really isn't. But it does mean learning how to deconstruct the almost years' worth of automated responses that we have at the ready, and learning how to prioritize ourselves when that becomes more and more difficult to do by the day. When we put these changes into practice, however, the effects are almost instant. I should know, currently, after a comprehensive analysis of my bank account and the funds I've since spent and saved since that unfortunate day at REI, I have determined that I have saved over, get ready for this, $200 with just a simple no. I started with one store, but now, though I haven't been able to earn back all of my funds quite yet, I no longer feel a crippling sense of guilt every single time I enter a store. And you know, that's truly all it took. One syllable, 2 letters, to finally feel a sense of freedom. This word is the most powerful tool that we have in our toolbox. And so now I ask, what will you do with it? Because your response to that question, which for once isn't yes or no, is entirely up to you. Thank you.